Good morning, viewers. Today I am present before you with another topic of Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot. The topic today is Relevance of Pozzo and Lucky Scenes in the play. It is advisable that you keep a notebook and a pen so that while listening to this audio come video, you can jot down the important points. It is further advisable that you use earplugs while listening to this audio come video. So here I begin. The Pozzo-Lucky relationship constitutes a subsidiary theme in the play Waiting for Godot. The dominant theme of the play is waiting, boredom, ignorance, and impotence. The Pozzo-Lucky scenes representing a master-slave relationship are thus intended to add to the substance of the play and to introduce some variety as regards subject matter. These scenes also serve as interludes between the periods of waiting by the tramps, each appearance of Pozzo and Lucky and their encounter with the two tramps may have been meant to suggest the passing of time, which, despite the two tramps' ingenious devices to pass the time, would otherwise pass slowly indeed. These scenes reinforce the mood of gloom and despair which the play is intended to create. Lucky's plight under the tyrannical mastership of Pozzo is very wretched indeed. We first see Lucky driven by Pozzo by means of a rope tied round his neck. Bent under the weight of his burden, Lucky resembles the biblical ass. He has a sore neck which excites the sympathy even of the two tramps. Beauty, grace, truth of the first water is reduced to a mere beast of burden in Pozzo's eyes. Though, prompted by the kindness of his heart, he has decided to sell him at the fair instead of killing him. Pozzo certainly is not only himself feeble and infirm now, but even the tramps feel physically weakened by contact with him and after a fall can get up only by an exceptional effort of the will. Lucky's speech, incoherent though it is, terrifies the others because it foretells the extinction of the world. This speech begins with a postulate of the existence of a personal God and ends with the image of an empty fossilized skull. What Lucky seems to be saying is that man has been unable to make a place for himself in this universe. Man wastes and pines and eventually fades away. As to God, he is the victim of apathia, athambia, aphasia. He leaves man to his sports and man has not a chance. Philosophers and scholars will fail to halt the regressive motion by which man will revert to his primitive condition. Scientific progress will simply unmake man. This is surely a saddening utterance, in spite of the comic movements and gestures in the midst of which Lucky speaks and the partly comic manner of his speaking. The other speech by Pozzo pertains to the brevity of human life and is wholly tragic without any comic touches whatsoever. I quote, "One day, like any other day, one day he went dumb. One day I went blind. One day we'll go deaf. One day we were born. One day we shall die." Unquote. They give birth astride of a grave. The light gleams an instant, then it's night once more. Pozzo and Lucky in Act 2 present a very sad spectacle indeed. Once the whip-cracking master of men and worldly possessions, Pozzo has now, because of his blindness, entered a shadowy world, a universe which is like nothing. His sightlessness, as he himself states, is that of fortune and absurd blindness. Unlike Tiresias, he does not possess a third eye, which would enable him to look into the future. A grotesque Oedipus at the crossroads, led by an idiotic slave, Pozzo is as cut off from any future as from his past. In the portrayal of Pozzo, Beckett seems to have given us a caricature of God, the absolute monarch. Pozzo is a living symbol of the establishment. Even in his helpless state, he makes use of the royal V, but now he represents a gloomy spectacle. They enable us to see the contrast between the two pairs of characters. Pozzo and Lucky create a metaphor of society, not as it is, but as the tramps might see it, with the social structure reduced to an essential distinction between master and slave. Pozzo reminds us of a feudal lord who dominates by his gestures and his inflated language. His is a well regulated world in contrast to the confusion of the tramps, where everything is in flux, and Pozzo's behavior echoes the image which the tramps have of Godot. Pozzo and Lucky are tied to each other both ways, not by their natures but by their external conditions. The slave is tied, but the master is tied also, because he must hold the rope. Later, this is the rope that leads the blind. Vladimir and Estragon have a different essential relationship. They are at once loving, doubtful, and resentful, wanting to break away, yet still anxiously returning to each other. Theirs is a voluntary relationship, but with binding natural ties. Pozzo and Lucky represent the relationship between body and mind, the material and the spiritual sides of a man, with the intellect subordinate to the appetites of the body. The relationship between these two men is on a more primitive level than that between the two tramps. These two men may be master and slave, or body and intellect. They have also been capitalist and proletarian, colonizer and colonized, Cain and Abel, sadist and masochistic, even Joyce and Beckett, but essentially and more simply, they represent one way of getting through life with someone else. Just as Vladimir and Estragon more sympathetically represent another way of doing so. Pozzo could be interpreted as a gruesome product of the modern age. He has been called a small bundle of subjective feelings and responses. Do I look like a man who could be made to suffer? Deeply hidden under a mask of hardness, however, there lies in him an unconscious longing for lost values. In Lucky, on the other hand, we can see destroyed contact with the creative sources of the inner consciousness. It becomes more and more evident in the course of the play that Lucky believes his safety to life only within the pattern of a mutual sadomasochistic relationship between himself and Pozzo. Yet, another view is that Pozzo represents mankind and that Lucky represents Christ. If this view is accepted, what takes place before Vladimir and Estragon is a reacting of the redemption. Vladimir and Estragon, of course, do not recognize it as such, find it unpleasant, and prefer to continue waiting for the vague Godot. A connection between the Pozzo Lucky scenes and the play as a whole. In his opinion, the play is all about impotence and feels that Lucky holds the key to this play, especially in his long monologue. This critic is convinced that Vladimir and Estragon have destroyed their chances of finding Godot because they have abused the link which is Lucky. Pozzo's menial Lucky in some ways suggests the biblical figure of Christ. It also is possible that through Pozzo's tyranny, Beckett may have tried to convey an anti-traditional view of God. Pozzo may be no other than Godot himself. If Pozzo is Godot and Godot stands for God, then God must be as tyrannical and devoid of pity as Pozzo is. If this view be adopted, the relevance of the Pozzo Lucky episodes becomes even more striking. Vladimir and Estragon have been waiting for Godot, who was expected to save these two men from utter despair by bringing about some improvement in their lives. Godot comes, but in Pozzo's disguise. For a moment, the two tramps even take Pozzo for Godot. Then the two tramps witness the piteous spectacle of Lucky being treated brutally by Pozzo. This then is the reality of Godot, provided of course Pozzo is Godot in disguise. It is another matter that the wretchedness of Pozzo in Act 2 does not conform to this particular view. But then no single interpretation of this play is possible. No single interpretation of either the play or Pozzo can consistently be maintained so as to fit all the situations and events that we witness. Thank you for your valuable time. Please do like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and mention your observations and questions in the comment section below. Here's wishing everyone a great day ahead. Thank you so much.